Welcome, welcome. My name is Aoife, and I am a mind body coach. I work mostly with highly sensitive women, and I teach them how to heal themselves from chronic pain, chronic illness, anxiety, and depression using mind body medicine. And today I have Peter. I'm not going to try and pronounce your surname because I might make a mess of it, but Peter has an amazing story, and I love amazing healing stories so much. And he has an incredible story to share with us today about how he healed from tinnitus. We don't know what the most used version of that word is, but Peter has written a best-selling book called I Cured My Tinnitus.
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, it's going to be really great to hear his journey. And I know people really appreciate a specific symptom. So it really helps anyone out there who has this specific symptom. I know listening to your story, Peter, is really going to help them to have the confidence that they might be looking for to heal themselves. And if you're someone who has never had this symptom, I also recommend that you listen, because I never had back pain, but I listened to all the back pain healing stories and I applied it to my own journey and my own symptom. So glad you're here, Peter. Do you want to add anything to your introduction? Tell people anything about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speak with you. And maybe I will encourage the people who has a back pain or any other pains to listen, because I think the root cause will be similar. And actually, I was amazed by work of Mr. Schubiner, or Dr. Schubiner, Howard Schubiner, and he discovered this brain connection with pain. Then even if you don't have any objective reason in your bones or in your joints, you can still have pain if your brain is stuck in some circle. And this is exactly the same with tinnitus, because sometimes everything is healed. Your ear is okay, or in most of time your ear is okay. Everything in you is okay. You are 100% healthy, but you still have tinnitus, and this is because there is connection between brain and some noise which is natural in ears, and this connection needs to be disconnected to heal from tinnitus.
I love that you use the word disconnected. I haven't used that yet, but when I am helping my clients to disconnect their symptoms, a wide range of symptoms, I've been using the deactivate, but the
Okay.
disconnect makes perfect sense as well. So I love that. And so do you want to share a little bit about your story? I'm dying to hear what your journey was like. You had a diagnosis, I assume, of tinnitus, and yeah, if you want to tell us a little bit more about that.
All right. Okay. Around 12 years ago, I went to loud concert here in Prague, in Czech Republic. And after this concert, I was not able to hear properly. I had this hearing under the water, and it lasts for 3 days. And when it was healed naturally, I started to notice the sound in the ear. It was some ringing or whistling in ears, but it didn't bother me a lot at the beginning, so I didn't care about it. But it didn't go away for 1 week or 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, I started to search on internet what it could be, and I found out that it could be tinnitus. And at that point, I started to freak out. My tinnitus immediately increased. And from the time I was not able to sleep, not able to concentrate on anything, So I went to doctor. He told me, yeah, this is tinnitus. Your ears are okay, but you have this condition and we cannot do anything about it. You need to get used to it, or we can try some pills, but he don't know anybody who's like these pills help. But I took them, and after 1 month I go to the check again, and tinnitus was still there. And he said, okay, that's all what I could do, and now you have to used to it. But for me, it was so unpleasant and so bad. And in my nature, I'm not like used to give up things. So I go to another doctor, a medical specialist, all this Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, I don't know, a lot of different things. But everybody told me that they can help me a little bit, but tinnitus is somehow strange and they are not able to deal with it a lot. And I was struggling with tinnitus by this way 3 years. And after 3 years, I have also a lot of problems in my work. I was on like very high management position in bank, and my like work performance decreased a lot because of tinnitus and because of my impossibility to focus on work. So they like the company tried to help me with coaching. So I start to go to coach or visit the coach, and I visited this girl. She's my friend now for maybe half a year, and we were able to fix some work things. And after this half a year, she said, "Okay, your like work goals are okay, but I think you have some like personal or mental like problems or pains, which could be fixed by some other specialist." And she told me that she know one very good like psychologist, and she recommend to visit this psychologist for me. And I said, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I don't need psychologist at all. So I was very against this idea. But at the other hand, I was desperate. So I went there after like 3 months of considering this. And I went there and we were talking about childhood. I didn't understand why we were talking about childhood, because I thought at that stage that my childhood was absolutely normal and okay. And when I finished, I didn't like it at all. This therapy, I hated it at all. But she told me, okay, your story reminds me one story which I describe in my book. So I recommend you to take this book and read the story, and it can help you understand what is like under the surface in your life, in your mental health, in your like physical health. I said, okay, I will take it. And few weeks ago, I was in the forest with my dog, and there was a meadow, and I sit down and start to read this book. And when I go to this story, which was like similar to me, I read it and I didn't even finish, and I start to cry. And one important thing, I didn't cry for 18 years before that, because I'm from society where only girls cry and boys don't cry, and we are tough guys. So I didn't cry for 18 years. But after reading this story, I was crying in this forest for 4 hours in a row. And I remember like going back to home by my car. I still have tinnitus out of these 3 and something years, but it didn't bother me at all. And it was very new. And when I came home, I promised myself one thing, that I will stop listening or like looking for things on internet or doctors which told me there is nothing to do about it, and I will focus only on successful stories. So I start to searching for tinnitus successful stories, and I found some, and this was like a breaking point in my healing.
Oh my God, I love your story so much. Thank you for sharing so many points there that I just thought were so golden. First of all, when you describe having this painful worrying symptom, and then being told we don't know what it is, we can't really do much about it. Here's some pills, but the pills haven't even worked for anyone. I know there's so many people out there who are living that experience now, and that was my experience too for actually 3 decades of all kinds of awful symptoms. And that triggers so much fear and so much stress, right? The root of the symptom is already stress, and then you get triggered into a whole new level of stress. And then there's the Googling, Google research, and then all the different other practitioners and things that can be told to you. So I know I just really related to that part of it. And I love what you shared as well, because I work with women because I know the kinds of limiting beliefs and patterns that women get that causes us to generate stress in our lives, in our bodies, that manifest into different illnesses. But it's really important also to hear the different limiting beliefs that men get, we get from our cultures, that cause cause us to be generating stress in our body. So I loved that. So you read the book, you had a breakthrough, you were able to release, let's say, some emotion that hadn't been allowed, because we all grow up in these environments and cultures and worlds where certain thoughts, emotions are just not allowed, and we take that on, and then we're living our lives in that way, and that's generating stress. So you had this kind of like movement of that energy. And so what happened next then? The symptom was still there. The tinnitus was still there.
Symptoms were exactly the same.
But you didn't care as much. You weren't as worried. And oh yeah, this is the other thing you said that was great. You decided to focus on success stories. And I love this so much, because a lot of people out there, they worry that they're the exception to the rule, that their symptom won't heal or their health won't heal. And I think it's a really, really great advice to because you can put anything into Google search and you'll find horror stories, you'll find success stories. So why not focus on the people out there that are getting success stories and feed off that confidence, and from that place find solutions. So I thought that was just brilliant as well. So then tell us what happened next with your symptoms.
There was the one thing, the symptoms at that point remained the same, just in like few hours after this crying, it didn't bother me so much, but it started to bother me again after a few hours. But there was one more thing. I realized that if I have so much suppressed emotion in myself, I cannot be healthy. If I was crying for hours in a row, that something inside is wrong and I need to fix it. So I started with psychotherapy. Every week I went to psychotherapy. It was like one change. And second, I started to look for success stories, and I found few success stories, and one success stories medical specialist, which is Dr. or Professor Pavel Yastrebov. I think he's from University of Yale, and he did big or huge research on tinnitus, but he's not ENT specialist, like ear, nose, throat, but he's neurologist. And he started to look in tinnitus from neurology point of view. And he found some like old research on students. And this research was about, there were students on medical school and soundproof room. And they asked students one by one to go to this room and tell them, we will play a very, very quiet sound, and you need to tell us what the sound was. And 90% of these students, when they go out from this soundproof room, said, I heard whistling, I heard ringing in ears, I heard some noises, etc., etc. So almost everybody heard tinnitus. And Pavel Yastrebov was like searching why, if everybody or almost everybody in the world is hearing tinnitus, why some people even don't notice it, and for some people it is like crushing their lives. And he found out there is an ancient mechanism in our brain. It is called like hypothalamus. It's a part of our brain which is responsible for like increasing and decreasing everything what is like going to the brain from our sensors, like ears, nose, eyes. Because now when we are talking together, we are focused on me, and you are not like focusing on other sounds or other sensations, because there are a lot of sensations and we can choose only few. And my name is Peter, and when I'm in the soundproof, or if I am in, for example, in a restaurant, and somebody says name Maria, I didn't hear it. But when somebody says me name Peter, I immediately turn my head, because my brain knows that Maria is not important sound, and it is like deleted or suppressed. But Peter is very important sound for my brain, and it will increase it. And Dr. Pavel Yastrebov found out that tinnitus is natural sound in ears. There is like some electric activity in our ears when these acoustic signals is like transferred to electric signals to the brain, and this makes some noise. But for healthy people, this noise is unconscious. Here is like conscious, and it is under there. But in some circumstances, it can become conscious, and when it becomes conscious and you start to be afraid of the sound, your brain will increase it even more. So, for example, you have some ear infection, or you go to loud concert. So your brain is a little bit damaged. And during the healing, this sound increase. Like if you have the wound in your skin, you can feel it. It hurts. And same in the ears. In the healing process, the sound is naturally increased. But after some time, it decreases, because your ears are healed and everything is okay. But if this sound is increased for 3 or more days, and you notice it and you start to be afraid of the sound, your brain pick this up as dangerous and important. And even if it goes down to this previous level, your brain will increase it about the conscious. And this is like this connection, and this is how the chronic tinnitus starts.
Amazing. I haven't heard it explained like that before. But I know for me, I for me, headaches and back pain have never really been something I think about or I'm scared of. So
Mhm.
I think throughout my life, I've probably had a lot of headaches and I've probably had back pain, but they don't register as important. So they didn't, for me, ever become a chronic symptom. But
Yeah,
there are certain things. It's like I have and I see it with all my clients, people have certain things that they're most afraid of in their bodies. And
yeah.
so they're registered as most important. For me, for sure, it was the digestion and the IBS
Mhm.
pain and food. And so this was just so scary for me. And the more I couldn't eat, then, you have to eat to be alive. Um, and it just became more and more of a bigger deal. And
Yeah,
it was always spiraling in that direction, that it was always getting worse, no matter what I did, no matter how many
yeah.
diets or
Healthy food,
acupuncture,
organic food.
anything, or the different holistic practices.
Yeah,
Exactly. Nothing, anything I did. And I even did do therapy and different types of emotional work. But for me, still, it wasn't until I had this very clear explanation of
Mhm.
what was happening in my brain and in my body that was causing the pain and causing the symptom, that it started to reverse. But until I
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but until I got that information and I had something to go with, it was always getting worse. Um,
Yeah,
was continuing to get worse and worse and worse, unfortunately. Um, so so yeah, having these clear kind of scientific explanations for me, and hearing these doctors, it helps when someone of authority or someone who in your culture you like respect, hearing people describe that this is what's really going on, and that it's reversible. For me, that was the moment my life changed and I began to be able to reverse all of the symptoms. But for
yeah.
sure, digestion and sleep, um, and my bladder as well. I think they were my three most important, like most that they were registered as most dangerous,
Mhm.
most important. So I was most hyper vigilant about them, and I also
Yeah,
had the most amount of stories about them then as well.
yeah.
Between between Google searches and different people I'd spoken to, and then also memories, like devastating memories of not being able to, I wasn't able to work. I lost my ability to work. I wasn't able to show up to my best friend's wedding, and I'd missed a lot of school, all these different things over the years. That was also stored in there. So that was all stored. It was all adding to how important this particular sensation in my body was. So yeah.
Yeah. This exactly, you described the same mechanism in tinnitus. Important things, though, is to say that we are speaking about chronic tinnitus without objective reason. So everybody needs to go to a specialist, get his like ear, maybe neurology check. But don't worry, because in 99% of chronic tinnitus, there is no objective reason. So then, as is described, like this cycle is like you feel fear, and your symptoms is increased because, for example, your stomach is like in like tense and cannot do the work properly. And your stomach is tense, you are not able to eat properly, so you are even more like in the fear, and more fear, even more tense, and this is like adding and adding, and then you are not able to eat or sleep or anything, or you can hear only tinnitus, nothing else. So this cycle needs to be, as I said, disconnected. And then like spiral, you need to find like way back how to find out things which we like help you to get rid of your symptoms or understand your symptoms. And when you see that something helps, then your fear is lower and your symptoms are lower. And then you see again your symptoms are lower and your fear is lower, and you are like going in like healthy spiral.
I love that. So the fear and confusion and vagueness, not having clear information, that's spiraling in the unhealthy direction.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Yeah.
Symptom is always getting worse, or you're getting more symptoms. So then when you can start to disconnect, and for me, for sure, the first point of disconnecting was this information. Having brand new information from that made sense to me. That was my first point where I was able to start spiraling the other way. And then for sure, I had a journey of finding out what was on my spiral, because we're all different, right? We're all different.
Yes, definitely.
What's going to work for you, what's going to help you to decrease your fear and decrease your symptom, it's going to be different for everyone. So I love the way you describe that. And then it's finding what works for you on that spiral that's going to get you reversing the stress, the fear, and eventually reversing the symptom.
Exactly. So what was next thing, what was very important in my case, that I discovered how to measure tinnitus every day, the volume of my tinnitus every day. So I see if my tinnitus is like better or worse than the day before. And I start journaling. I just play something here. Okay. And with this journaling, I was able to see which situation, foods, activities, people are making my tinnitus worse and which are making it better. And before tinnitus, I had migraines for 10 years. And my migraines were finally healed after I discovered migraine diary, which my doctor gave me. And when I had a migraine attack, I always was trying to find out what I eat or who I met the day before. And slowly I was able to find out my like triggers for migraine attacks. But with tinnitus, it was, for me, tinnitus was every day, 24 hours, always the same. But when I discovered this method of like measuring tinnitus, I was able to do the same as for migraines. And from that time or from that point, it was easy for me.
Interesting. So for me, when I was using this mechanism of looking for triggers, it actually put me into more of a state of fear, because I was everything was triggering me, all the different foods, and so then I ended up being scared of all these different triggers and trying to avoid situations for fear of my symptoms. So it's interesting that actually helped you, that system. So you were tracking your tinnitus, and you were what were you correlating it with that was triggering it?
So I started with food. And in my case, was one important thing that I saw that tinnitus is every day the same. But with this measuring, I saw that it is not. That sometimes it is higher, sometimes it is lower. So it is not the same all the time. It's like very, very small differences. You are not able to tell subjectively by yourself, but when you measure it, you are able to see the differences. So for me, it was very calming that, okay, it is not the same all the time. Some things has some influence on that. So I started with foods, and for me, uh, every food which is processed was increasing tinnitus because it has like a lot of artificial sweeteners, preservatives, colors, and all these things are triggering nervous system. And when you trigger nervous system, you like increase your tinnitus. Then there was like things which are loaded with sugar. Then there was things, the fried things. I don't know why, fried food. Then bananas, red wine, chocolate, apples. So some things are pretty obvious, and I think that some things apply for everybody. For example, these processed foods, but some applied for me only. But for example, one of my clients had a tinnitus, and he ate a lot of oranges, and he found out that his tinnitus is increased by oranges. And we were trying to find out why. And we find out that the chemistry on the orange is causing the tinnitus. So when he washed the orange very properly before peeling it, it was not increasing tinnitus anymore.
I see. And so I did also have actually this whole part of my story where I was seeing that foods were triggering my IBS
Mhm.
and sugar and so then I was eliminating them from my diet. But then I
Mhm.
found I was living in this stressful environment where I was
Mhm.
scared of bread and I was scared of sugar and I was scared of like the exactly the chemical on the food, and my symptoms were getting worse because I
Yeah,
was
I
in a
can understand it.
yeah, I was in a fearful place. And even though I had eliminated all these foods from my diet, I was living this pure, eating only very pure food at the right time of the day and everything. It would work for a small amount of time, but
Mhm.
I couldn't live like that, totally living like scared of food and not able to eat in restaurants or um and then B, I wasn't actually feeling any better in
Mhm.
the long run.
Okay.
So for me, I got to a point where I had to ditch the focus on food, and I had
Mhm.
just completely 100% go on what's gonna calm my nervous system in terms of more like what's gonna really nourish my soul.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I know that sounds quite like hippy dippy or something. What's really gonna
I
nourish?
understand that.
Yeah, because because what's really gonna nourish my soul is gonna help me to regulate my nervous system, which
Yeah.
was so dysregulated. So me personally, from my story and with my clients as well that come to me, they do find themselves in a place of panic and fear around food, um, which which can be detrimental in the long run. However, I do mostly choose now. I live from a place where I choose mostly, like when I can, organic food and I choose foods that I know myself support my body and my nervous system. I'm quite educated in nutrition, and I have had a privileged life where I've had access to great food. But it's coming from a place of choice for nourishment,
Not
choice
fear.
exactly, choice for nourishment, choice for to support my nervous system, and nourish myself rather than fear of what's gonna kick off the symptom. Because
Yeah.
I was finding myself, like in social environment, not unable to be sociable because of being scared of all the different foods and
Mm.
able, so it was detrimental to me at that time.
Yeah, and I think that like from long term, you need to like nourish also like yourself, like to have some joy in your life.
Exactly.
So I definitely understand that. In my case, fortunately, the foods which were increasing my tinnitus a lot was only few. For example, sodas. I stop drinking sodas. Junk food. I stopped eating junk food. It was very easy for me. And also, I found out that in some restaurant, when I eat, it is increasing my tinnitus, and in some not. So I realized that in these good restaurants, they are not using like some
And that's
artificial ingredients. Then they are doing it like our grandmother would do it, and it was okay. So I skipped this like cheap restaurant and go to like better restaurant. But I at that time I eat a lot of meat and etc. like normal Czech cuisine. And the most important was that there is no chemistry in this food.
yeah. And honestly, there's still things like caffeine that for me that I do still avoid. If I drink personally, I have clients that can drink coffee and they're totally fine. But for me, if I drink caffeine, I won't feel well. I'll feel my nervous system ramp up, and I just won't feel great. So you don't want to live from a place of fear of food.
Yeah.
And you do still have live from a place of making choices that will support your body, support your nervous system better. So when I feel sick from the caffeine, I know, well, the story I tell myself anyway, who knows what's going on. This could just be my own brain creating this for me. But my brain has decided that caffeine stimulates my nervous system. So I'm not thinking like, oh, what's wrong with my stomach? I have IBS. There isn't a whole story. There's just,
Yeah.
well, there's a little story. But anyway, so that was one part of your process for reversing your tinnitus.
This
And
was yes, this was food.
yeah,
Actually, about the food, um, from the day I cured myself from tinnitus, I'm still like doing like some healthy choices. And for me, the diet would which is most similar to is like blue zone diet. I don't know if you know what are blue zones. Blue zones are 5 places in the world where people live 100 years and they are absolutely healthy. There is most number of these called centenarians. Actually, on yesterday, there is a series in Netflix, Live to 100. And this diet and the book there, it's the recipes from these blue zones. And they are very cheap, very simple, not processed food, a lot of legume, a lot of tubers, a lot of vegetables, and it like tastes just great because these are recipes like 500 years old and they are fine-tuned to absolutely perfection. So this is my diet, I would say now. So next thing which I discovered during my journaling and tinnitus measuring was that some sports are increasing my tinnitus. For example, it was roller skating. So I knew that roller skating is increasing my tinnitus, but it took me maybe 3 months to realize this, because it is not obvious immediately. But after 3 months, I was sure that it is increased my tinnitus. So I go to a physiotherapist and told her that I have some problem with neck or something. And she said, yeah, you have a problem. Your posture is very bad and we need to fix it. So I start to like make some exercises. And after a few weeks, I go to inline skating, and it was not increasing my tinnitus anymore.
Very good.
And last part, and it was like maybe more stuff, was relationships and situations. So I found out that when I have a meeting with my boss, when I speak with my mother, speak with my ex-wife, it immediately increased my tinnitus. So I brought these problems to my psychology or my therapy, and we were trying to figure out why these people or these situations are increasing my tinnitus. And I found out that I'm suppressing anger in this situation. And then when I start to release my anger, not like screaming, but just saying, okay, don't do this, I don't like it. Like setting boundaries is also how you can express your anger. So I start to set up the boundaries, and my tinnitus start to decrease again. Actually, it ended up that I got divorced. I left that company, and I stopped to speak with my mother for some time. So this was the last part. But these three things took me about 6 months of weekly therapy. I would not be able to do this by myself.
Of course. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. That is like, for some people, when they start to embark upon this journey, a lot of things change in their lives, like relationships and work. And then for other things, for other people, their lives might stay the exact same, the relationships and everything, but the way that they're relating to themselves and the way they're relating to those people will change.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I've had clients, but on both sides of the scale, where everything has changed, relationships have ended, jobs have ended, new jobs have started, all change, and then some people nothing changes, but the same internal process is happening.
Yeah.
However it shows up on the outside, the same internal process is happening, which you described, is starting to see that there's things that you're not happy about, and there's things that you're upset about in your life, and there's things that need to be spoken about, awkward conversations that need to be had, and all these changes then ultimately end up decreasing the chronic stress that you are experiencing in your nervous system, in your body, and then your body has a break to heal and relax from whatever is going on in it. We're all different. Our bodies are manifesting the stress in all different ways, but you're taking all that stress away from your body, and you're going to deal with it yourself in your life, however that looks. So that's an amazing, incredible story that you have to share. It's so inspiring, and I can relate to everything, most things that you share. So I love chatting to people about their journeys like this, because even though we might be so different and have different limiting beliefs, different but it's the same process. It's ultimately the same process. It might look a bit different tools, like journaling didn't work for me, therapy didn't really work for me. I had to find different tools, but ultimately it's the same process at the root. It's disconnecting from the fear, getting the new, fresh clarity, confidence, information about your symptom or symptoms, and then finding who, what, when, where is generating stress in your life, in your relationships, and start to untangle that. And for sure, I recommend getting support for that, because it's not an easy path to walk, but it will lead you to a place of less stress in your life, in your body, and a more regulated nervous system. So it's it's definitely a win.
Yeah, and maybe a lot of people think that stress is something psychological, but stress is definitely physical, because when you are in stress, different hormones are released, for example, cortisol and adrenaline. And when you study the brain, you know that when these hormones are released, your brains work differently. Let's put this, you have some tunnel vision. And for tinnitus, stress will always increase the tinnitus, because when you are in stress, your body thinks, or your ancient mechanism thinks, that there is a predator around you, and you need to be very focused on everything, not to be relaxed, but focused. And when you are in the forest and you know that the predator is somewhere there, you need to hear the branch 200 meters from you that it breaks. So all your senses needs to be more sensitive, and you need to be very, very sensitive. I think there are a lot of sensitive people in the world now, but I think that it is caused mainly by chronic stress. If they manage the stress and the stress hormones go to normal level or down, they will not be too sensitive to lights, to sounds, to food, etc. Because, for example, allergies are also reaction to stress, because when you have a lot of stress and then there is another stressor, will allergen come, your body will fight against it. But when you are in calm state, it will not be fighting against this allergen.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because earlier on when someone suggested to you to see the psychologist, and your reaction was you were resistant, and I can really relate to that, because I had done so much therapy already, and I had done so much. So when people were suggesting to me that what my physical symptoms were stress related, I was very resistant to that information at first, until I really had the scientific biological information. So I love what you said. This is the mind-body connection, that stress is physiological. And I think a lot of people are so used to our level of stress that we don't know that we're stressed. So I would say 80% of people I get on a call to tell me they're not stressed. They say they have all these different symptoms, but they're not stressed. And it's either that you're so used to your level of stress, you don't even know you're stressed, or your brain is just doing an excellent job of hiding it from you in the symptom and distracting you from it with the symptoms. But it is stress. Dr. Dave Clark, he calls it stress illness. So whatever way you can start to connect the dots for yourself, where the stress is being generated, this is going to help your body to heal. So thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your amazing story. Is there anything else you want to share? I'll leave the details, a link to your book, a link to where people find you? I know you have some other resources out there. So is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
Hmm. Just I would like to encourage your listeners or viewers to find successful stories because they are so inspiring, and they will see connections with themselves and also connections in these successful stories. And then in comparison, they will find the things which needs to be different to be cured, to be healthy, and to be vital.
100%. And I think when you do start to heal yourself and you find, that you're finding it hard, remembering those success stories will help to carry you through. Like, oh, they went through this too. They had to maybe end a relationship or change your job, or those people's stories will help, I think, to carry you through when you're finding your way with your own healing journey. So I love that advice, and I love so many things that you shared, Peter. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your Friday evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and all the best for your viewers and people you are helping.
Thank
I
you.
hope they will get better.
Thank you, Peter.